Hi there. Welcome to The Preventable, the podcast giving you a seat at the table with conversations about the intersection of alcohol, drugs, and mental health in everyday lives. Take a seat and join us.
Welcome to The Preventable. We are back and we have two just amazing guests today who I've had the privilege of knowing for a long time. And we're here to talk about one of Prevent+Ed / formerly NCADA's longest running programs, Teen Institute. So with me today with me today are Allie Stambaugh and Grace DeClue from Prevent+Ed. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So we are here to talk all things Teen Institute. And before we dig in, really, I just want to know just a little bit about each of the two of you. So, Allie, let's start with you. Yep. Talk a little bit about how long you've been with the agency and what is your day-to-day role, TI, set aside for a second.
Yeah, so I'm Allie Stambaugh, and I have been at Prevent+Ed for about 10 years.
Woo!
And my day-to-day, I just hit my 10 year this year. My
Congratulations,
day-to-day,
I didn't know that.
Thank you. Super excited. But on my day-to-day basis, go out to different schools, mainly high schools. I do love the littles. I think they're great, but other people are much more effective at teaching them our programming. So I teach mostly high school kids and middle school kids. And I'm also part of our counseling program called Guided, where I do some of the workshops for the kids who come to our Guided counseling services.
And before Prevent+Ed, you were working kind of still in prevention, still in health, right, in various capacities.
Yeah, so I did way back in the day get a degree in health education and was teaching health and PE for a little bit at a high school in Illinois. Then I moved to Florida. Finding a teaching job can be very interesting if you move. So I found actually drug prevention when I lived in Florida, and worked at another drug prevention agency in Bradenton, Florida, and then moved back to the St. Louis area. And I actually applied for a job at NCADA back when we were NCADA. And I remember, told me, like, hey, darn it, we already hired people. We'll hold on to your resume. And of course I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah, I think you were like, yeah, right.
But it did happen. But while I was waiting to get to Prevent+Ed, I was working at a drug prevention agency over in Illinois. So I've been part of drug prevention in 3 different states, which I think is a pretty cool hat to wear. So I love it.
Very cool. Yeah. Grace, what is your normal day-to-day look like at Prevent+Ed?
Well, I am doing a lot of stuff different than what I have in the past.
Yep.
So right now my biggest priority is taking care of my almost 2-year-old kiddo. So I do a lot of stuff for Prevent+Ed remotely right now. I work on hosting our Red Ribbon training. So we hold 3 of those every year, and we just wrapped those up. I just put all the stuff away in a nice little bow. It feels good.
And Red Ribbon trainings, for those people who don't know, are?
Yeah, so we host Red Ribbon trainings for middle school students. So sometimes it is a Red Ribbon team. Sometimes it's their leadership group. Sometimes it's just a handpick of students from the teachers. And then sponsors will bring a group of students. Usually it's about 10 students. And we do trainings just to teach them about drug prevention. So we'll host a bunch of breakout sessions, and then they learn about, this year we talked about cannabis, vaping, prescription over-the-counter medicine, and stress. And so they kind of attend these breakout sessions. They understand kind of some of the facts, some of the information, and then we give them some time to plan a little bit of their Red Ribbon Week activities. So we want them to be able to plan something that's fun, but also really meaningful to the Red Ribbon mission. So
awesome. So you plan that. That's a lot of logistics, a lot of execution, and then you also help with some scheduling and some things like that, and then Teen Institute.
Yes.
So how long have you been involved with us, Grace?
Well, I was actually thinking about that on my drive here this morning. I was talking with my husband and trying to figure out, okay, when did I really interact with the agency for the first time? And it was actually the summer in between my 7th and 8th grade school year.
You heard that right, folks.
Wow.
Yes. So we had a training that my school counselor wanted us to attend, and it was actually just 2 people, myself and my best friend. We attended a training that was put on, a conference that was put on by NCADA at the time, and so no one else signed up, but we signed up to go with our sponsor, and I loved it so much. I was so out of my comfort zone. I had no idea who anybody was. We didn't have a big group that went like some of the other groups, and then as there were these a group of students at that conference, and they were interns, and they helped run it, and they helped put everything on, and they did these cool skits, and they went around and got everybody excited and jazzed about prevention, of course. And so I remember thinking, like, as we closed out that conference, I was like, next year when I'm going into high school, like, I want to do this. Like, I want to be an intern. And so I remember actually attending a Red Ribbon training that my 8th grade year and asking the person who was in charge of the interns, hey, when do the intern applications come out?
Amazing.
So really, and then I interned all through high school. I made some incredible friends. It just was so awesome to be with a group of students that I really felt understood the mission of prevention. And also we had such a fun time together. We were a really cool group of students. I don't know if we were really cool, but we thought we were
you
cool.
felt really cool.
We
That's
felt
all that
really
matters.
cool. That was what mattered.
Yeah.
We loved doing all of the intern things that we would do. And then I interned for a couple years, kind of like helping Kristen kind of corral the interns and help leading the interns for 2 years. And then when I was graduating college, I was like, hey, I need an internship to finish my schoolwork. So Kristen hooked me up, and I did a little bit of an internship. And then I also applied, of course, to work at Prevent+Ed in prevention. And it was just, it's been a wonderful place to work. I just hit 5 like official years.
Amazing.
At the agency. But like I said, it's just, for most of my life now, I've been a part of the agency, and it's just been, it's been like home. So I'm glad I'm still here and doing the thing, and now get to help run TI with Allie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if it means I remember my very first year at Prevent+Ed when I was doing my observations. I actually came to Prevention Leadership Conference, and I remember some of my coworkers talking about other people who we worked with and students we had. I can remember someone talking about, I don't remember who it was, but they were like, yeah, you got to meet this kid named Grace. Grace is really cool. And now I get to work with this kid named Grace.
Yeah.
So.
What I think you both showed in your 2 introductions is, number one, that, you know, like myself, like a career in drug prevention can look a lot of different ways, right? It can look like planning, it can look like in the classroom, it can look like helping kids that maybe have hit a few missteps and things like that. But it can look a lot of different ways. And at Prevent+Ed, a lot of us have had a lot of different iterations and
Right.
wore hats. But the other thing that you both kind of mentioned is sort of finding like your people, you know? And so when Grace, when you were talking about PLC and you were this, you know, group of high schoolers that were cool, or you thought you were cool, but you said it like you found your people, you know? And so that's one of the coolest things I think about Teen Institute. So Teen Institute, this will be our 41st year, 42nd year.
It gets tricky because when COVID hit,
Right.
you know, we had to cancel. We ended up going virtual, and
Yes.
it's just been interesting.
We're going to say 40 plus.
40
That's
plus.
usually what I say when I'm
40
advertising
plus.
40 plus.
Yeah, so we've been doing it since 1980. Will one of you kind of give just like a real brief view from 30,000 feet? What is Teen Institute, just kind of as you do your elevator speech?
So I tell folks that it is a powerful leadership camp that we spend 3 to 4 days together, where they get advocacy skills, they get leadership skills. We do some workshops on different drug prevention topics, but it's not just that. We also have a ton of fun. We have people who come in who are outside of our prevention or our Prevent+Ed staff, I should say, who are going, like this year we have a slide dancing person coming in.
Awesome.
We are talking about doing tie-dye and a lot of different things that people can do to find their natural highs. versus relying on a substance for, the maybe different feelings that they would get from a substance to maybe cope or deal with, life's hard times.
Mm-hmm.
So really helping people gain leadership skills, advocacy skills, to take back to their communities, to use in whatever they're being a leader in, whether it's drug prevention or anything that they're a leader in.
So it's a drug camp, right, Grace?
Yes, definitely a drug camp. Yeah, I mean, when I try to give my elevator speech, it sounds exactly like what Allie said. One thing that I've added recently is, especially when talking to students or adults, is that, yes, we say it's a leadership camp, but sometimes when people hear that, they think, oh, it's just for those kids that are in Stuco or NHS or on some kind of leadership board of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case at all.
Totally.
We've had a lot of different students sign up. We're almost at 40 students, which is incredible.
From 26 different high schools.
Yeah, so we're really excited about the variety of students that we attract from TI, and it's not just this year, but in the past we have students who are traditionally in like leadership roles, as you would say, but we also have a lot of students who just want to learn more about prevention. We have students this year who just kind of want the camp experience and to kind of break out of their comfort zone. We have students who want to get into leadership in prevention or otherwise. We have students from the guided program who sign up who have kind of taken missteps, and they're like, hey, I want to learn more about this, and I want to get to know people who are also in this space. So that's one of the things that I've been trying to hit hard, is that if you don't know somebody who's leadership kind of style in life, like that's okay.
It's okay.
We still want them because they could absolutely fit with TI this year, especially.
Yeah. I have to say, I know that I'm not supposed to say that I have a favorite program, right? But I do. And it's Teen Institute. And, I know, right? And I've had the privilege of going, I don't even know. I think I've lost count. I want to say maybe 15 years, maybe. And it's, as Allie, as you mentioned, it's 3 nights, 4 days. So it is overnight. It is something that our staff, train for and get ready for, and the staff who go are staff who love teenagers and love working with teenagers. But I have just seen amazing transformation called magic.
Yes.
From the first day that they get there, kind of looking around going, what is this thing? Sort of how you described, Grace, where it's like, what is this thing? And then by the end, they're hugging everyone, saying, I don't want to leave. When can I be an intern next year? How do I stay involved? It's truly a transformative experience. And some of the young people that we've had the privilege of working with, have gone on to do some really incredible things, both in the prevention space or in the advocacy space, or also maybe they've decided to make some healthier choices, or maybe they've decided to pursue, college or military if they hadn't really been thinking about that before. Or maybe they just went home and shared some of the knowledge that they learned with their family, which is equally as powerful.
Sure.
Right? Could one of you talk a little bit about the panel, which is sort of like if you think about a program sort of on like a bell curve, right? Where you build excitement, and then you have this top, and then you're sort of thinking about, okay, now what do I do that I've reached the top? The panel is sort of the top. So could one of you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Are we talking about the folks who come in that are in recovery? Yeah. I just wanted to make sure. I wasn't sure if it was the last
Oh, that's a good panel too. We can talk about that one also. That's like the go into the world. But let's talk about the first panel first.
Yeah. So earlier, just to back up a little bit, we were talking about guided, which is middle school, high school kids who have maybe had some missteps. And we're humans and made choices. So the panel that we have...
people are fallible? Is that right?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
And so I say that to say the panel that comes in are a group of adults who have been human and made choices, who are in recovery, who come in and kind of talk about their story, how they got to where they were, and how they then made some changes and found the help that they found. And it's a really really cool experience to see just how the participants at TI watch how those folks are talking about their stories. And you can almost, without anybody saying anything, see some changes happening as the students are just sitting there, just because they're seeing other people who have made choices also, and see that it's not the end of the world if they've received a consequence or if they're dealing with a consequence of some sort, because there are things that we can do to move forward from that. And so I think that's one of the powerful things about the panel is they get to see that a person can go through a hard time, but then also learn a lot to get through it and make some changes in other people around them as well.
The panelists also talk about the impact that their choices had on their families.
Sure.
Which is huge, because you mentioned that we have some kiddos from Guided who participate, but we also have folks who might be recommended by their counselor or something because maybe their brother has died of an overdose, or their parents have been struggling with substance use disorder. And so we oftentimes have kids that are teenagers that are in the audience that are sitting there going like, wow, this is my mom, or this is my dad, and my dad hasn't figured it out yet, but this guy has. And so I have hope that he might figure it out.
Yes. I had a student at a high school that we go to often, and he came up to me after our substance use disorder lesson, and he mentioned that because I also advertised Teen Institute that day, he said that he wanted to come to the camp. He was really going to think about it because this particular person, when they go home, that's what they experience at home with both parents. So he said that he wanted to come to this camp to just, one, get away and kind of find a group of people that he might find some similar interests with, or just a group of people to be able to just be supports for him. And we're still working on advertising. I actually go to this high school on Wednesday, so I'm going to try to have a chat with them and get them all signed up. And then another notable story that I have from this year, getting folks all signed up, is we had a Guided student who, in a message to one of the counselors, said in the initial parts of the Guided program, I don't believe in prevention. I think this is stupid. I'm only doing it because my parents want me to do it. So it's kind of like a check in the box thing for her.
Yep.
I had this person in many Guided workshops. Probably by the third one, I was chatting with this person, and they actually got signed up that day. And this person also shared how proud they were when they were on their final day of the Guided program and just couldn't believe they made it. So it's just really cool to see all of the different folks that we can get to come to this program who didn't think that it was going to be fun or good or that they were going to believe in it, but then they do.
Right.
It's really cool to see that transformation.
Right. My first year, so I did not go to Teen Institute when I was in high school. I could have. I don't even think I really knew about it. So when I signed up for this job and they're like, oh, by the way, you have to spend 3 nights and 4 days with a bunch of high schoolers, I was like, cool. and then as it got closer, I was thinking to myself, like, and I'm not cool, by the way, but I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, this is going to be like a camp for nerds. Like, what is this going to be? You know, and I was expecting it to be like, exactly as you said, Grace, like all of your like 4.0 students, by the way, that, you know, like, we're like, oh, how do I get more involved and how do I make my college resume look better? And I get there and there's like captains of the football team and cheerleaders and kids that really didn't want to be there and were forced to be there, and or kids that were just like so incredibly shy that I think the adults in their life were like, this is a contained, safe environment, you know. And even with the panel, we don't do panels in schools because we can't have the appropriate follow-up and making sure that we don't just like open a wound and then walk away. And so with doing it during this camp time, we can provide lots of support through different small groups and different like eyeballs watching kids. So I had no idea what to expect, and it's pretty incredible to see the transformation.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, the small groups are a really good place for students to ask questions, to talk about the hard thing that they just heard about,
Right.
so they can process through it in a safe and healthy way. And it's really cool. And we also, for extra support, we have our counselors signed up to come to Teen Institute at different times, just in case a kid needs to sit down and have a chat with one of our counselors.
Totally.
Yeah.
Grace, talk about that end of the last day. They kick things off with a kind of a, okay, now what session. Can you talk a little bit about the power of that?
Yeah, so when the teens attend TI, they get boatloads of information.
Totally.
They hear about the panel, and they are just so jazzed up about prevention. And then so at that last session, we're trying to help them figure out some actionable things that they can do with all of that incredible prevention energy that they've got going on. And some of them get very into it. And so kind of like you mentioned earlier, Nicole, sometimes it's, okay, I want to join Elevated, our youth coalition through Prevent+Ed.
That's right.
Incredible. We hope that students do that. Sometimes it's starting a group at their school. Sometimes it's talking to their community groups or their church or whatever the case may be. But that advocacy session is kind of trying to hone in on all of that excitement and figure out, okay, now that you have all these facts, now that you understand substance use disorder and all of the facets that go along with that, here are some things. Let's talk with your groups. Let's figure out some things that you can actually do that could make an impact. And it might just be carefrontation. We talk about how you can talk to a friend or a sibling or a classmate.
My favorite session.
It is. It is really powerful, because there are a lot of students that as they sit through the sessions, they're like, well, you know what? Like, my friend really has been struggling with vaping, and it's been affecting them, and they're having a hard time with their sport. And then they go through all this stuff, and they're like, well, what do I do? I'm not going to sit down and give them a PowerPoint presentation.
Right.
So we do that session on carefrontation and figuring out how to talk to that friend, the manner in which to talk to them, kind of the words to say, how to make it seem very open and not judgmental. So maybe it's just having a conversation, and if that student leaves TI and the one thing that they did with that information is helping a friend, great.
We've done our
That's
jobs.
Perfect. We've
Absolutely.
done a job. And for some students, they might be going through that advocacy session at the end and thinking, well, that stuff might not be for me. But if 2 years down the road, their sibling is maybe struggling with something, boom, they can pull that out of the back of their brain and then use it at that time. So we use that time just to take all of that excitement and, hey, here's
Channel
some things
it.
you can do. Let's put it somewhere that can actually be really useful. But if they don't use it all right away, that's okay too.
Yeah.
They'll leave with something.
Totally.
Yeah, I always say it's a template that they can copy and paste and use in many different situations that
That's
come
right.
up, whether it's now or 5 years from now.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Another thing that we give them, in addition to everything that you guys just mentioned, is the knowledge that you can actually have fun
Yes.
without drugs and alcohol, which for teenagers and for adults, let's be real, sometimes that can be hard, right? And so we've talked a lot about pushing folks out of their comfort zone. You're maybe eating foods you've never eaten before. You're rooming with people you don't know. You're alongside in small groups with people from schools you didn't even know existed, right?
Yeah.
26 schools registered
26.
just right now. They're probably going to be in a small group with a school they've never even heard of, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Guaranteed.
If they're from an urban environment with a rural kid, or if they go to a single-sex school with a kiddo from a public school, an hour away. And so throughout all of that, we put them in these groups, and we're like, oh, by the way, we're going to do some really fun stuff, push outside your comfort zone. We're going to get really silly, and we're going to help teach you some new skills and just kind of take the guards down.
Yep.
So we have lots of really fun evening activities and different things like that. So will one of you kind of talk through some of the fun stuff that will push them outside of their zones?
So I did mention that we're thinking about doing tie-dye this year, which is something I don't think we've ever done.
No, I don't think so. I'm excited about that, by the way.
We have what we've done almost every single year, Teams Challenge, which is kind of like an obstacle course of sorts, but they go through it with their small group and achieve a bunch of tasks together. And we also have a person coming in to do sort of like a line dancing situation.
We used to do square dancing, right? Even with like fiddles and stuff.
Yep.
Like we
square dancing
but
this year.
We're not doing that this year. We're doing like slides,
not that there's
right?
anything wrong with it,
just
but this
switching
is
it
just
up.
going to kind of be a different genre of dance. And that is usually one that I always watched people come into the square dancing one, and they're like, oh my God,
like, what is this?
Horrible. But then that's one of the ones they have actually the most fun at.
Totally.
We have in the past people come in to do a martial arts.
Self-defense.
Self-defense, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That we're not doing this year.
We're just switching it up.
We're just switching it up this year. We also have a night where it's going to be kind of like a choose your own adventure, where there's going to be some s'mores set up.
Did someone say s'mores?
Yeah, we're going to have a s'mores station.
There's been talk about a drum circle of
drum
sorts at the campfire.
Okay.
So
Yes.
we've got those traditional camp activities
Love
going
it.
on.
Love it.
And we're working on getting the karaoke machine in.
Love it.
And then
we've got we're
movie
gonna set up
night.
a movie situation.
Yep.
And the first night is something called Fun Factor,
Yes.
which
Yes.
I have the privilege of leading this year. It's one of my favorite things, where basically it's just like a bunch of different games and activities. And of course, there's a purpose behind them, right? To like get to know each other, learn communication skills, blah, 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 blah. But it's really fun. I mean, you're having like, snowball fights with pieces of paper, or you're like doing like silly like actions and you're trying right. It's just like so totally bizarre.
And I love that night because we get to finish it up with an ice cream social.
Woo!
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. Courtesy of
The Malt Shop in Fenton.
exactly.
Yes.
There we got to plug that. We have to
Absolutely.
plug that. Excellent. Talk to me a little bit about the staff transformation from it. As an example, we have a group this year of staff from all different departments. Some people it's their first TIs, some people it's their 15th. Talk a little bit about the staff and what the staff get out of TI.
Yeah, so I've always thought since day one, and this is just me, but I have heard other people say it too, it's the reason why we do what we do. It's one thing for us adults to come
I'm going to try not to cry while you're talking about this, because this is probably going to be my last TI, so you have to talk about this.
Yeah, so it's the reason why we do what we do. It's one thing for us to go into a community setting or a school or whatever it may be, because I feel like we do so much now. It's one thing for us to do that, but to be able to give that knowledge to a high school student who's interested in going out into the world to do very similar things, whether it be drug prevention or some other thing that they're passionate about, they get to learn. And I've always said since day one, again, there's this magic of TI. So to get to give that magic to another person and they can go put that into the universe, it's so cool. And even if it's just one kid, but it's always, I feel like more than one kid, almost everyone that comes to TI, there's this magic that they get to take from TI and put it into their own world. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the cool things about TI is that, when we get to go into schools and work with students, it's very rare that we get to see them, over time. Like, we don't really get to interact with them in like a smaller setting. Like, we get to see the same kiddos over and over again.
Yeah, we plant a lot of seeds.
Yeah. And so sometimes, they recognize us from year to year, which is awesome. But at TI, you are with them for 3.5 days. Yeah. And so you really, especially the kids in your small group, you really get to know them a little bit. You get to understand like how they feel about prevention, and you might even hear some things about their personal life, their life at home. And so at TI, you really get to make connections with these young people, and they really look up to us as staff. So whether you're giving one presentation at TI or you're there the whole time, like, they see staff as the people that they're looking up to in this space. And so it's really cool to be able to impart that wisdom, but also really get to know the young people that get to come to TI, which is really powerful, because we don't get to do that very often.
Right.
And Nicole, you mentioned that we have people from many different departments at Prevent Ed. It used to, when I started, just out of how we've kind of done it at the time, used to just be like prevention staff. Now we have people
stuff.
from counseling. We have people from our community what's the word? Oh my gosh.
Community strategy.
Community strategy. It's changed throughout the year. So that's why I'm like, wait, what is it called now? But yeah, that work with coalitions and peer specialists. So the people who are coming to camp, they're not just getting the prevention or school-based prevention lens. They're getting it from a lot of different departments. So they get to see all of the different options of things that they can do and people that they can be as they grow up. I really love that about TI.
Right. And the staff end up forming some pretty strong bonds because when you're up for, 18 hours a day and you're
doing bed checks,
you're doing
sure they're in
you're doing bed
rooms.
checks at 11:30 p.m. or it's 6 in the morning and you're groggily trying to gulp down your coffee while you're putting in your contacts and you're laughing and you're bonding and for me that has been one of the really most amazing side effects of Teen Institute is, yes, of course, it's all about the teenagers.
Yeah.
And it is so fulfilling for me because I get to know my team members on a totally different level.
Yeah. I feel like we get to go after TI into our jobs and into the schools, into the communities, doing our programming, and we're this united front. And it feels really good because we're all, for the most part, on the same page. And it's cool to grow with our staff every year doing this.
Agreed. So give me like the nuts and bolts of this year. So let's start with the basics. So first of all, where do I go to sign up? How much does it cost? I'm sure this is like $1 million. Right, exactly. Talk me through some of that.
So the dates this year will be November 21st. That's a Thursday. Students will arrive between 6 and 7, so they're good to do school that whole day. Most of them, they'll eat before they come, and then they'll arrive between 6 and 7.
And that's a Thursday,
and that
right?
is a Thursday.
Okay.
Friday, we have provided excused absence letters for all of the students who have registered so far.
Can I interject for a second?
Please do.
So this past Sunday, we were at the Stambaugh Addiction Walk, and I'm talking about TI, and my guy is standing there and I'm talking about all the wonderful benefits of TI, and then at the very end I'm like, and they get to have an excused absence on Friday, and he goes, whoa. He's like, you should have led with that. He's like, I think teenagers would really like that. And I was like, well, some would. Some it would freak them out that they have to miss school.
Yeah,
I've had both ends of the spectrum.
I was going to say I've had both sides of that where one student was like, but I have a test that day.
Exactly.
And so we can work with them and figure out how we can,
He was like, that when I was a teenager, that's the thing that would have made me go.
Yeah. And then other people, I'll be advertising for Teen Institute in a high school classroom and, talking about all the other things. And then I say, hey, we actually get you out of school that Friday and we give you letters to give to your teachers and administration, and their eyes just light up.
Right, exactly. They're like, ding, ding, ding.
That's all we needed.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, Grace.
No.
So they get there on Thursday night between 6 and 7.
Yes.
Their belly should be full, but they'll have dessert later on in the night.
Yes, we'll take care of that.
All right, Friday's an excused absence.
Yes, Friday is an excused absence. And then Friday all day, Saturday all day. And then Sunday is kind of that day where we wrap up. We get ready to send them on their way. And then so Sunday will conclude at 2 o'clock. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Now I'm blanking.
Ish.
So around that time, that's when they'll leave. Students can drive themselves. They can be picked up. We have Prevent+Ed is providing transportation for any students that need it. So that is a really cool perk that we have as well. It is $50 to attend. However, we do have a lot of coalitions and groups that are signing up. We're working with to sponsor some students. There's even some schools that are actually sponsoring students to go. So if a student is unable to pay that $50 fee, we do not want that to deter them from registering at all. But as far as like camps go, $50 for a 3.5 day
pretty solid
camp is pretty cheap compared to a lot of comparable.
Yeah.
It covers the
camps.
whole stay. It covers all the food that we get, which I hear is really good.
Okay.
And also covers the swag that we get. They get a swag
backpacks,
bag. And
sweatshirts, tie-dye shirts.
Awesome.
It's going to be really awesome.
And they have a goat farm.
Yeah, they have goats.
Yeah. I'm like simultaneously excited and also like a little nervous about that. I'm sure it's going to be great. But that's new for Camp Wyman this year, right?
Yeah,
that's
Or
what
the
I've
goats
heard,
farm.
We have not seen the goats, but we saw the area where the goats should be.
Awesome.
So we're hoping to make a stop there in the next couple of weeks just to, nail some things down. And so hopefully we will see the goats. We'll see how they are.
That's another thing that's exciting about this year's TI is we've changed location and we changed the time of year that we do this camp. It used to be over the summer traditionally, but now we changed it up to a long weekend in November.
And why? Why did we change it?
Well,
we didn't have anything else to do.
I know this is, we just wanted to shake things up.
Yeah.
No, we actually, over the past couple of years, especially since COVID, and a lot of people can attest to this, kids' summers is just like packed.
Packed.
So it is way more like students used to have the whole summer, and now they have every sport that they're in has a camp.
Summer school.
Yeah, summer. A lot of students, especially high school students, will knock out some credits over the summer. So
Yep.
that takes up a whole bunch of school time or summertime.
And with how crazy things get, sometimes they just want their summer off.
That's true.
That's it.
They just want to
students will
decompress.
work, and so sometimes it's really hard for them to get off. And so while we're running into some conflicts in this November time, we had a lot of students last year in particular who are like, I really want to come, but I have a Stuco camp. Or I really want to come, but I can't miss more than 2 days of band camp or 2 days of band practice. And if I miss that, then I can't do it. But my family already has a vacation. And so we've been battling that for a couple years. And so this year, by switching up that time, we're like, let's just see if it works.
Yeah.
And thankfully, it's proven to be pretty successful so far.
Yeah, and
knock
there's
on
going to
some
be
wood.
pros and cons no matter what time of year we do it. I think this one has, so far, knock on wood, turned out to be pretty good. But we'll see after November.
We're trying it,
Yeah.
right? We're trying it because we're listening to the participants, we're listening to the teachers and to parents, and they're the ones who kind of made this suggestion. So, like, why not?
Exactly.
Camp Wyman, we're really excited to be there.
Yes.
They're a great partner of ours. We're definitely going to feel the camp vibes. We're leaning into the camp vibes. It's going to be very exciting. So $50, all meals are included, right? All the activities, all that good stuff. And then Monday morning, they get to go back to school. And,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and they, we'll be back in the afternoon on Sunday. So any homework or things like that, hopefully that will give them some time to decompress after the very busy weekend and tackle anything they need to do before Monday.
Awesome.
That's the goal.
And we have a lot of free time at camp as well, between workshops and between other amazing fun things that we're doing, that if they wanted to, they could do the work if they wanted to, or they can just hang out with other kids at camp and meet really cool people.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So where do people go to sign up?
The Prevent+Ed website.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
there's going to be,
So
I believe there's a big,
PreventEd.org.
yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There is a banner on the homepage. I actually was pulling it up the other day, but also if you go to
We have
the page
Facebook
about
and
leadership activities, there's
Yes.
and also on Facebook and Instagram,
Mhm.
we have put up a few posts that give some information on how to sign up. And a lot of high schools and other events that we've gone to, we've handed out flyers. So those are possibilities. If you had a flyer, you can scan a QR code.
So
But
when will
website's
we?
probably the best bet.
Okay. When will we stop taking applications?
We would love for applications to be sent by November 1st.
Okay.
That will give us time to order all the t-shirts and sweatshirts and finalize meals and the stuff with Camp Wyman. So that's the goal, November 1st.
So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, this sounds so great, get the application in. Or if for some reason you're having trouble getting the application in, I would say communicate with Grace and Allie to say, got an application, it's on its way.
Yeah,
Like-
and our emails are on the website as well
Yes.
when you
Yes.
go to the Teen Institute page.
What did I not ask you about that you like really wanted me to ask you about? Is there anything about TI that you like were really hoping I would ask you?
You covered one of my favorite things, which is the magic of TI.
Okay. All right.
And if you weren't going to say it, I was going to say it.
It had to be brought up.
It had to be.
Awesome.
Oh, and so part of that is also when we were doing a staff training, Grace was like, Allie, what did you get them? And I was like, this is either going to go over really well or it's going to be completely lame. But I, as just kind of like a thanks to the staff that are going to come and stay at TI with us, I got them these magic wands that actually light up and they make a noise. I think it went over okay.
Mine's in the car for later on this afternoon
Yes.
for the second training we have. I think it went
Amazing.
over very well. And if you're listening going, are these people going to put a spell on my children? In a way, yes. And they're going to come home
In a
and you're going to
positive
be
way.
like, whoa, what transformative experience has my kid just gone through, and how can I sign them up again for the next year?
Right.
Which is the last thing that I really wanted to talk about, which is, to your point, Grace, you went to a similar camp that we don't do anymore, but it was called Prevention Leadership Conference, and you went, and from day one you knew you wanted to come back as an intern. So when participants go and they're loving it, and just to make sure, because I don't know if we said this, it's for current high school students.
Yes.
So current high school students. But if they go and they're like, how do I come back next year? You apply and you come back as an intern.
Yes.
That's how you come back.
Yeah.
That is-
And then maybe come back and maybe come back and maybe come back and
for
then
6
maybe
years,
and
then
maybe
work
get
here.
hired here. Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the goal.
We've had interns come back a couple of different years.
Yes, we have.
And even one that is going to be on our kind of prevention staff at TI this year, who was an intern for multiple years.
That's
and
right.
Is now a small group leader.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll send out communication after TI that gives them the option to sign up as an intern. And I always tell people turn that in right away, because it's a pretty competitive
That's true.
spot. When you think about it, we have 40 kids signed up right now, and usually we pick around 8 to 10 interns to come back and help us out.
Yeah. And capacity for TI, I mean, we have capacity for more. So even though we have 40 registered, we have more.
Yes.
And we would love 100 kids would be perfect world.
Would be amazing.
Would be
We'll get
amazing.
there.
Yeah.
I
Oh
believe it. I
my
believe we
gosh.
can.
I know. I think we can and we will, to
Yeah.
quote Deb Cavett.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you both so much for joining here today. I am so excited for TI. I cannot wait. If you're listening and you're interested, get those applications in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nicole. We couldn't do it without you.
If you like what you heard, and I know you did, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to The Preventable.
Thanks for joining us at The Preventable, brought to you ad-free by Prevent+Ed. Prevent+Ed works to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use through education, intervention, and advocacy. Please visit their website at prevented.org. Like what you heard? Rate, review, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we are serving on The Preventable.